For those of you who don't know, I've been doing a lot of presentations and public speaking gigs at various different places, such as charities, workplaces and corporations, entrepreneurial events, my own events, online, lives, YouTube, etc., etc. And it's come with a lot of practice, a lot of things that I know work for me, and a lot of different things that haven't worked for me. And so with that in mind, I thought it'd be a great opportunity to talk about how I develop my presentations in order for you to possibly get some ideas in terms of how you can develop yours too. Now, this is applicable both in the workspace and within the sort of personal branding space as well. So take it as you will. Now, whenever someone asks me to do a presentation, or if I'm looking to do a presentation, the first thing I'm trying to think to myself is, what is the main goal or outcome? What am I trying to achieve? And usually this comes down to understanding how I want the audience to feel, okay? And so do I want them to feel inspired? Do I want them to feel empowered? Do I want them to feel enabled? What is it the thing that I'm trying to do? Now, there's the great book on TED Talks that basically says that there are different types of emotions and objectives that you'll have when it comes to, carrying out any sort of talk. And that is to entertain, that is also to educate, and that's also to empower. Now, they don't say it that way. That's how I say it. I use the 3 E's. But really, that's what you're trying to do, okay? Now, that leads me on to my next point. What are the learning outcomes? What are the learning outcomes that you're trying to deliver for this specific set audience? Do you want them to improve their financial acumen or savviness? Do you want them to improve their business intelligence? Do you want them to improve their sense of productivity? What are the learning outcomes that you're trying to achieve? And usually you can boil this down to 3 to 6 different things that you think are important for your audience, which leads me on to the next thing. Be clear about who your audience is. I can't stress this enough. Sometimes if you have enough time, what you may do is survey your audience. It could be a bit more elaborate, where you could do a Google form or Microsoft Forms and essentially set up some questions that basically state and ask, what type of person are you? So demographics and where they live, etc., etc., their occupation. But also trying to understand, what do they expect from this? What learning outcomes do they want from this? What would they like? What wouldn't they like? Any other additional comments? These are just high level stuff, but I'm sure you can find some ideas online as well. So survey your audience. Sometimes it doesn't require you to actually develop a form. You can just essentially ask somebody in your audience that especially if this is at work, you can ask somebody who may be listening to this and try gauge an idea of what they're expecting, okay? Because this will allow you to tailor the presentation in such a way where you can have the highest effect, because you've got soft data that can direct you, okay? So that's what you need to do. After you've done all of this stuff, it's about making sure that you just throw out your ideas. Now, you can follow this advice or you can forget it totally. If you're a subject matter expert, you don't necessarily need to research. And sometimes what people end up doing is that they will research what other people have said in the field. Okay, so this is from a statistical standpoint, a knowledgeable standpoint, a scientific standpoint, a qualitative standpoint, whatever it may be, just to understand holistically, what that topic area has basically, or what those people have said in terms of that topic area. And so once you get an idea, you want to write notes against this stuff with references, because if there is anything specific, you're a professional. You want to reference that stuff, especially those individuals that have spoken about that stuff. Okay, so you want to highlight this in your Notion or on your Mac Notes or whatever it may be. Okay, but I think what's even more important is brainstorming your ideas around what you think those topics should include. Sometimes you need a bit of, sort of like inspiration. And those inspirations can come from that research that you found online, or from videos that you've watched, or things that you've listened to. Sometimes they can come from books based on notes that you've written before. So for those of you who know, I write avid notes consistently, because the way I see it is, for my future children, I want to pass on this knowledge, okay? And so you can draw from that knowledge. Sometimes you can use the contents pages of books in order for you to get inspired by the structure of how you should talk about things and what the generic flow is. And you can do that when you look at multiple different books. I know at times books can be a bit sort of elusive with topics, but you can sort of work out what those topics are talking about. And so start to do this. The next thing you can do is think about any quotes, any inspiring pictures or people who have in some way suggested or spoken about this specific topic, okay? And note it down in this notes area that you have. Once you have all this information, the next bit is to really sort of like package it all together. So if you're in a more professional setting, let's say in a corporation, you're more likely going to be using PowerPoint, okay? And there are probably branding guidelines and rules that you need to adhere to. So make sure you check that on your local intranet. If not, then you may use something like Canva. That's what I use, okay? It's very popular now. It's a very good sort of platform. And there are so many templates on there that you can use. Now, I don't use the Canva templates. So me and my team, we've developed a template previously based on other, sort of presentations and workshops that we've done. And I've just stuck to that. I've just stuck to using that template, and that works for me. Not saying you have to use that exact same structure, but again, it's worked for me. And usually what I have as a default is a front page that has the presentation title and an image at the top as a header. The next page will have contents that clearly identifies what I'm trying to brainstorm. And this is where you start thinking about crystallizing that information. Then after that, really the sequence is an introduction of who I am as a person and my organization. Or in the workspace, this is just setting context. This is, summarizing previous actions or highlighting what the problem statement is as an example. And then you move into the chunk of it where you educate. And how I usually do this, again, if this is for a personal branding space or a business space, for me, it's posing a question, okay, as the first topic to get people engaged. And really, I ask people to define the different topic areas or the question that I'm posing. And then I give a definition afterwards based on what the Oxford Dictionary has said or whatever it may be. And then the next sort of bit gets into sort of like chunkier education. And from that, it's pretty much a mix of those different things. It's thinking about how can you engage with the audience? How can you sort of make sure that they're alert? So not always having loads of text or any text at all. You can just stick to having images. And it's just having that in mind. And then after that, after sort of like the main presentation, it is summarizing the points. It's always key to summarize the points. Of course, if this is a personal branding or business sort of setup, then what you want to do is then have, a thank you sort of page, also a questions page, but also more importantly, an opportunity for you to promote yourself and what you do. Usually what I promote is my YouTube channel, and I also promote mastery.academy, which is where individuals come in and basically learn from me and other individuals around different personal development topics as well. Again, in a professional setting, I spoke about how you'd have a summary and context at the beginning. In the middle, you'll have the main brief for information. So this may be graphs, this may be, again, more context. This could be sources of information from documents, etc., etc. And you would follow that same structure in terms of summary. It's very important that you have the contents sort of like really on point. And, again, in the corporate setting, this may be your agenda. So you maybe want to talk about this stuff with someone who's senior or someone who's part of this team, so you can better understand who should come in, what the timings are, etc., etc. Okay. And that's pretty much how I set it up. Now, in terms of what I didn't talk about is sort of like ensuring that you got the structure correct. So that really comes down to the contents and thinking about timings. Now, you want to sort of crystallize that structure and make sure that it's coherent. And the way you know this is by practicing the presentation. So you want to sit down in front of a camera, record it, and basically practice, okay? And you want to do this rough first, actually. And the reason I'm saying this is because if you do it rough, things may come to mind. And if you're using something like Canva or PowerPoint, in the notes section, you want to just write down sort of like things that come to mind, trigger points, etc., etc. Because if you've got it in presentation mode, you can see these notes as a trigger, and all you want is just bullet points. You don't want anything hefty. You just want something to refer back to, okay? So Do that first before you even record. I would say just go through it and just look at the different slides and write down key points, key quotes, whatever comes to mind in the notes section. Sometimes you just don't have the luxury of doing that. Maybe you do. Okay, so you've done that thing there. Then you record and practice, and what you're doing is you're just trying to see what it's like and how it feels when you run through it the first time. And then what you want to do is watch that video in silence and just see your mannerisms. You also want to see again how you sort of like sound without the visuals, and then you want to put it all together. Then practice again. Here's a neat little trick. If you have the PowerPoint app, you can actually rehearse this stuff and it will tell you how fast you're going, if you're saying and ers, and all this really neat metric stuff. And you can connect this to your TV or to your laptop, use the app, and basically really sort of set the pace in terms of your rhythm and everything else. It's a great tool to use, okay? So that's one little tip that you can utilize. Once you've practiced it like 2 or 3 times, or however many times you're comfortable with, or how much time you have, let's say for example you don't have enough time, sometimes you can just listen to your recording and just practice that way, okay? And so that's it. That's pretty much what you need to do. Now, when it comes to presentation day, I mean, obviously look smart, look presentable, look neat. Also, when it comes to the presentation day, also make sure that you're neat, you look presentable, you look on point, okay? So I don't need to talk about this in too much detail. You should use sort of like your common sense here. Just make sure that you're the person who can deliver this talk. You know, take deep breaths. If you don't need to get there straight away, don't get there straight away. Give yourself at least 5-10 minutes to yourself so you can just calm yourself down. If you're doing it from home, open the window, have some water next to you. You know, make sure you got loose enough clothing, you know, feel comfortable. And you want to make sure that you deliver it in a calm and measured manner. Don't think about what anyone else is doing. Think about you delivering this. You've practiced this enough time. Sometimes you may want to practice in front of someone. Maybe that helps and they can give you some pointers. Don't get them to interrupt you straight away. That's not how you want to do it. You want them to either write notes and then give you feedback afterwards. That's the best way to do it, because people interrupting you can sometimes knock your confidence when you're practicing, okay? And that's pretty much it. There's nothing else I can really think of. You just need to go out there with gusto and confidence. And usually when you know your subject matter, when you know your area, especially if it's something that you're really focusing on, I'm telling you, you'll kill it, because you'll bring your character naturally, because this is something that you know. I'd love to know, what is the biggest fear you have when it comes to developing presentations, or at least delivering them? Leave your comments below. If you want to see more videos like this, then I'm definitely going to be producing more around public speaking, presentations, and all this kind of stuff there, because I think it's important to know about. I may even develop a course on this just to give you guys some additional help when it comes to your public speaking endeavors. Anyway, if you like more videos like this, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. And as always, my friends, understand, reach, and expand. Peace.